On life.
Okay, I'm back. I'm back. The name Awanites comes from the Welsh word Awen.
Oh,
A-W-E-N, which according to, depending on the context, can mean either a bard or a person who's poetically inspired.
Oh, either would do. Gosh, that's
lovely. Live.
That's lovely. Thanks for that.
We live.
Whenever you're ready, Carol.
Sure thing. Alrighty. Okay, folks. Hello and welcome to the 647th Ovail. I'm sure we're all looking forward to get back to the upstairs of the Long Valley Bar where we'd usually be at this time. We're now on our 4th digital Ovail and would like to extend a warm Ovail welcome to everybody joining us on Facebook and here in the Zoom chat, and to anybody joining us for the first time as well. And to our regulars, welcome back. Get yourself a glass and get comfortable. My name is Cathal and I'll be your MC this evening. I'll give you a brief rundown of the programme, which tonight features a West Cork poet and a Birmingham-based poet. Excuse me, I'm just trying to get my, there we go, my Zoom working again. And yeah, following that, we'll have the open mic, but first we'll get underway with the 5-word challenge. So the 5-word challenge is my favorite part of the night. Often is a writing game where we get 5 words from the audience, which we all agree upon. And then you have to write a poem which includes all 5 of the words. 15 minutes to take care of that. And then that'll be judged based on individual votes. So everybody gets a vote. You can vote on Facebook, you can vote in the chat for the group here. And what we'll do then is we'll pick a winner and we'll award the winner a copy of Crunch by Anne-Marie Crowe Serrano and a copy of the 13th edition of the 5-word challenge anthology, which is a combination of all of the 5-word challenges so far this season. So if we can get some suggestions from the audience, we'll kick off the 5-word challenge.
How about magic, spelled with a K at the end?
Magic with the K at the end. That is an excellent word. And we have time from Maura Stevens. Magic and time.
How about sliver?
Sliver, and we also have onion from Augustina. So that's 4 words.
Here. You got my name right.
So we have. Sorry, what was that?
We've got a linguist on board. You get your name right.
I was trying to figure out which word that was.
Well, you can say linguist if you want.
Qualms. Okay, excellent. So we have our 5 words, which are magic, time, silver, or sliver even, onion, and qualms.
What are qualms, folks? Explique.
Qualms would be your worries, your grievances, your complaints, okay. Maybe your qualms.
Yes. No, I didn't hear you. Oh, that's good.
Magic, time, silver, onion, qualm.
Alrighty. So your 15 minutes is going to start now. And we'll be back then. We'll have space for people to read. And the person who gets the most votes in the chat and the Facebook chat will take the day. Alrighty, folks, we have about 2 minutes left there. I think that's it now, ladies and gentlemen. That's 15 minutes up. Is that right, Paul? You're still on mute there.
It's up to you, man. You're the MC.
Yeah, cool. All right, so that's time. So if you want to start putting your name into the chat, we can get some performances. While we're waiting, I could do my one just to start us off. Magic is a sliver of time, standing proud of all around it, onioned out in the humdrum ripples of ordinary eternity. A sliver where anything can happen, because of how the sun shines on a world just so far away. There can be no quarrel or qualms with magic. The space between breath, dust that drifts in starlight, a kiss before a cosmic night.
Wow. Wow.
Alrighty, folks, so we have some names for the open mic here. So our first name is Doc. Doc, if you would like to, we'll just unmute you there, and if you'd like to go ahead and give us your poem. Thank you.
Okay, I've written a haiku. Time's magic whisper peels away moments of qualms in onion layers.
Thank you, Doc. After Doc, we have Anne Doran.
My first time on, so thanks.
Very welcome.
So magic excites and overwhelms each space and orifice of my being, where time stopped still like the old pendulum clock, a sliver of light running through the room where I am sitting, too many qualms and worrying filling the hollow existence, and as I sit and give a penny to my thoughts, a solitary tear falls onto my cheek, another layer of my onion dissected and pondered on while I write.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Anne, and you're very welcome to Oville. Next, can we hear from Colin Scully, please?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me, Colin?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah. Okay, here goes. I will not peel an onion for you tonight, revealing layer upon layer of emotion. That's an overused foil in the armory of verse. I will not speak of time falling like slivers to the floor of one's life, measuring the passage of it, pensively analysing its ineluctable progress. There'll be no magic KRC, no mystical Celtic warrior roaming the hills of my stanzas, grasping at every cliche that the bards have handed down to us through 30 generations. No, I have qualms as a poet. Standards I set myself, no cliches, no overused metaphors, no abstract nouns, even if they're thrown at me like corn to a hen in a 5-word poetry challenge.
Thank you, Colin. After Colin, we have Owen Hurley.
Hello, hello.
How are you on?
One time I knew a girl, and she was nothing special, I swear. But she owned these magic onions so queer. And she used to hold them soft but drilled in her hand, and cut them to within a sliver of her soft, skilled palm. But these onions were magic, I swear. I'll believe it forever after, 'cause we'd cut them and cry, but we'd drown the tears in our laughter. She was nothing special, I swear, but these onions were fucking magic. And I'll never meet another onion that'll make me laugh like that again.
Gorgeous. Let me know when it's magic onion season this year and we'll go picking. Maura Stevens there. Can I have a poem from Maura, please?
Hi. Okay. Past time to cry sharp onion tears, past time to dwell on qualms and fears, to feel grief sliver lodged within my soul, to feel no sorrow, only cold, yearn for the spark to set a fire, yearn for the magic of desire, but a mask I wear and mask I'll keep, these are not onion tears I weep.
Excellent. After Maura, we have Augustina. Augustina, would you please take the mic?
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Brilliant. I've been chasing you just for a slither of your attention. Tragic display of toxic, I know, don't pity me. I wanted to express that I find being with you similar to trying to practice magic. I have no idea what I'm doing and I know it's risky. Has anyone mentioned that you present yourself like an onion? Not the smell, but seeing you is hard work. My feet are bony and sore with bunions, so many layers. Won't you let me in? Sweaty palms, dry lips, aching arms, and constant qualms, kind of like reading the book of Psalms. It's complicated.
Excellent. Thank you, Augustina. So, one moment there now. After Augustina, we have Simon.
All right. I've no qualms summoning dark magic. I dabble in the oblivion, the tragic. With atmospheric shears, I open the sky a sliver. With my hurricane arms, I call up the river, flowing between worlds. It turns gold and sparks in no time as I throw down angry bolts, as I stomp on the ground, and my wispy black beard shakes like an onion. You will see me roar and hear me come, as fish and frogs fall from the heavens, flop in the air, and fly like fish and frogs don't.
Wow. Excellent. That's a fantastic line. Hurricane arms that crawl up the river. That's brilliant. So now we have Sue Blue, an Oval regular. Can you unmute your mic there, Sue? Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Yeah. Okay. Here goes. This time is an onion. Its spicy layers coats, a cloak of magic fabric. Its many textures, rough and smooth, diaphanous as silk. Unlayering the layers, evaporating my qualms within, reveals the sickle of a sliver in the midnight fabric of stars, cutting through my skin, piercing me to tears, releasing my deepest inner to fill the air with memories of sweetness. This time is a witness to the magic of silence, the charm of slowing down, to the coat of an onion, wrapping my worries in smooth silver silk.
Beautiful. Fantastic, Sue.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Pamela Campbell, a new attendee from South Carolina, I believe. How are you, Pam?
Good. I have to honor my roots. I am from the Cumberland Mountains in Appalachia, but I am temporary here. I got trapped by the pandemic. So my accent doesn't belong here. But anyway, okay, here we go. This is a challenge. Thank y'all. Magic. Cornbread, buttermilk, sweet onion tellings. Just Maymaw and me. Tilling the black depths of me, the sliver of my qualms, holding close in Maymaw's hands and in the breath of her words. Just Maymaw and me.
Beautiful. Next, for the 5-word challenge, we have Cedric. Cedric, are you there? Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Every tick of the wristwatch was a layer of the end, forever gone along with some of his humanity. His hope for the future to come at a steep end. This was no magic, but far beyond science. The group applied something they hardly understood, too desperate to act in good conscience. They thought themselves out of time. They focused all attention on the result, that they thought solution, really the ultimate crime. A laboratory for chapel, a pedestal for altar. They sacrificed the solid one with no qualms. After all, loony, fearful preachers do not falter. He entered the machine and exited the word, watched his mortal self peel like an onion. The tall hand on his watch was a Damocles sword. At the end that he reached, there wasn't nothing left, not even his former self, but the duty to keep the gate of the domain he had just breached.
Awesome. Thank you, Cedric. So next up, we have Philip Spillane, please.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Cool. I think I have a bit of a problem. I also had those magic onions, coincidentally. So this is my version. Go on, go on, go on. Try a sliver of my magic onions. No worries. It's supposed to be nuclear green. Taste of alcoholic cider chiseling down your spine, boiling, frying your gut. In time, all your qualms will be quenched, woes will be washed. If you have my magic washrooms today, magic onions today, go on. Thanks very much.
So now we have a poem from Rab, which Rosie is going to read for us.
Hello. Okay, it's Rab's poem. The traveller paused by the stream, filling her bottle from the slither of pure water dripping from the rock face. Onion-scented tears had left a tide mark of salt down her cheek. Time passed, as did her qualms. She danced then and sang, praising the magic and welcoming the mushroom season, the greenest time of year. Go green for magic, no fear.
That's beautiful. So we've had a message from Raf there. So I'll read his poem there. It's one moment. If time was a cake, it would be a few crumbs, spotting the plate, desperate finger darting, pressing, trying to make sense of the taste. Not even a chunk or a stingy sliver, you pretty much got handed the candle, already burned out. And it's more like stabbing at an onion in the dark, tears and wild guesses, a vague sense of purpose, the result, mostly scars. Place it all in the pan and fry up your qualms, vanished like the cake, vanished like magic, melted away. Time feeds only panic. Time stings like the onion. Time eats up resolve. Time spoils everything. Time is just like mold. So that was from Raf, our poet from Coventry there. And next we have Jim Crickard.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through.
Okay. The sky burns with the fire of red wine. In a cloak I walk this forest alone. Magic fills the air this haunted time. I can feel the evil sliver beneath my feet. But I have no qualms because in my pocket are the makings of an omelette. Garlic to launch at vampires. Onions to make werewolves cry. Spinach to iron out the fairies. Eggs to throw at evil gnomes. And grated cheese to lead me home.
Alrighty, and next on the 5-word challenge, we'll have Molly Toomey.
Hi, can you hear
Hi,
me?
Molly. Yeah, you're coming through.
Cool. That's funny because I have omelets in mine as well. So, I butter fry rashers and onions to remember when you'd make me omelets. No qualms in your black boxers with your spine like the chain of a pocket watch. My God, I wish we had been given more time. The sliver of a ring you got me stained my skin, turned it a kind of grey, but I left it there despite the hives, the itch. It was a kind of magic, how purple it went. Not until then did I think of the bruises, the blisters, how my body cracked in your fist, how the words "I'm sorry" slipped from your left to your right palm like an egg, and I the skillet burning underneath.
Wonderful. That was powerful, Molly. Next on the 5-word challenge, we will have Mags Creedon.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, okay. I suppose I wrote this from a memory of going to dancing one night when a tanker blew up, which was not funny. But at the time we were traveling with a guy called Dan the Bomb, so it's written from my memory. Okay. They saw the sky burst, missiles of light illuminate the west. What firework displays celebrate us here today, said they. Have no qualms, said he. I have the controls firmly in hand, Sherry. You are safe with me. And with a flick of the toggle, he throttles the lever, flattens her back on the headrest, eyes dilate in this altered state, propelled, compelled now and ready for takeoff. Slivers of glass hurtle past, and the tiny meteoric lights burst, syncopated time bursts, shake their side doors. Their car ascends in flight and shoots the mother load of exhaust, ostrich plumes to flan their way, peeling off her outer layers of insulation, shedding orbitals like an onion. Electrons emit and quarks spark, and she sheds the ballast, free of the Earth's atmosphere, and closing her eyes to the sound of Big Tom. They blast up the top of Barlin, and in the purple Cartina with the dodgy suspension, and she's going to rock with Tommy the Bomb. Surely we'll make the West Lodge by sundown, but did they little know their battery of cosmic skylights was a battery of cosmic skylights were the harbinger of the Betelgeuse, named for the second brightest star of the constellation Orion. The scene of sparkling sky sears their dark mountain night. And Shinawil so far.
Fantastic, a real story.
Well, it was, because we all went dancing to the lilac in the skene, but the balcony shook and we saw the lights, and everybody kind of had this, there was no mobile phones, but people had this shudder And when, yeah, this was what had happened. The tanker had blown up. So a lot of people around West Cork kind of remember those kind of stories. You know, they told us that it was the vibration. But yeah, my brother was there on the night, so it's something I'll always remember.
There's something Kevin Barry about it.
Well, he was working on the night. Yeah, it was a horrific night in Bantry, but at the time people thought it was fireworks. You see, where we were, we didn't know anything.
So finally, on the 5-word challenge this evening, we have Catherine Ronan to close it off, and then we'll go to the votes.
This is very short, lads. It's called Love. Give it to me, a sliver of your genius, oyster of possibility. My heart is an onion, peeling, revealing each time we meet. Until at last, magic sets the final cog whirring. We travel through the centuries, hand in hand, to where it all began, without qualms, 1,000 heartbeats ago.
Fantastic. All right, guys, if we can get our votes in now, we'll begin the very difficult process of deciding who is going to wind up with the 5-word challenge anthology and the Serrano.
Hello, Cathal.
Hey there, Matt. How are you?
Cathal.
Yep, I can hear you.
I have a poem.
Excellent. So finally, we have Matt Mooney, as it happens.
Right. Time was eat onions raw and tearful. After dinner, he was an uncle in the city that never lost his country ways. Now, I have no qualms in doing the same at my own table. Just a sliver or two of a little nugget of an onion from my garden. I add some butter with every bit of my last potato. Add a glass of milk, and it's magic for me. My treat, just like I used to see by my Uncle Eddie in an upstairs room in a pub by the Cladda side.
Brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed that, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so now we're beginning to count up the votes, ladies and gentlemen. So get voting.
How do you vote?
So just jump into the chat there on the Zoom call.
Yeah. All right. Oh, yeah.
You can write someone's name, or you can just write 5-word challenge and then the name. Alrighty, guys, another couple of minutes here on the voting, and then we will see who's winning. We have, I think, a strong contender at the moment. And we might also have some votes on Facebook, so I'm going to have a quick look there. We have no votes on the Facebook, but we do have hello from Richard Hawtrey in Surrey and from Derek Ellen in Canterbury. So how are you doing, guys? How are things? All right, so The winner of the 5-word challenge today, the 4th digital Ovale, the 647th Ovale, is Molly Toomey. Molly, would you like to read your piece again for us, please?
Class. Thank you very much. So I butter fry rashers and onions to remember when you'd make me omelets. No qualms in your black boxers, with your spine like the chain of a pocket watch. My God, I wish we had been given more time. The sliver of a ring you got me stained my skin, turned it a kind of grey, but I left it there, despite the hives, the itch. It was a kind of magic, how purple it went. Not until then did I think of the bruises, the blisters, how my body cracked in your fist, how the words "I'm sorry" slipped from your left to your right palm like an egg, and I the skillet burning underneath. Thank you.
Wonderful, well deserved. Alrighty, so the next part of the evening is our group poets. So I'll introduce both poets one after the other. So we'll have a reading first from Dara Breen. Dara Breen is a West Cork poet.
Sorry to interrupt you, Caho. Would you mind going through there's a list of announcements that has to happen at this point.
Sure.
Happen there with you?
Did you send them to me on
I did.
Facebook?
No, they're in that document I gave you.
I'm sorry about this, folks. One moment. Okay, so we do have a couple of announcements, and they are that the free PDF of the 5 words volume 13 is available online on the Ovale website. That's ovale.ie/5 words. It's also available in audio on that same website, ovale.ie. From this point forward, an MP3 of the readings will be recorded for the podcast. If you prefer to be excluded from that, please type no MP3 and your name in the chat. You can donate to Ovale. Any amount of pennies is amazing. All the support is fantastic. And you can do so on ovale.ie as well. Next month's guests are for the annual Twin Cities, Cork and Coventry collaboration. And you know what I have here? I have, I don't have it. I had a prop for that one. The Cork City and Coventry event. And those poets are Emily Lauren Jones and Matt Black. The 5 Words International Poetry Competition continues. The first prize is €750 plus a glass award. It's rather beautiful. It's a Michael Ray creation. The second prize is €500 and the third is €250 plus publication and invitations to read at Ovale in April 2021. The 5 words for the 14th to the 21st of July are lace, lip, steel, ice, and familiar. That's lace, lip, steel, ice, and familiar. You can find more details about that competition on ovale.ie/blog 5 words poetry competition. And next up, guys, we'll have Cork poet Dara Breen. Dara Breen currently lives in West Cork. His latest collection Nostoc, was published by Shearsman Books in January 2020. His previous collection, What the Wolf Heard, was published by Shearsman Books in 2016. And e-chapbook, The Lighthouses, was published by Smithereens Press in 2016 and is available to read online if you go to the Ovale website and find Dara Breen there. Prior to that, November Press published Whale in 2010 and Across the Sound, Shards from the History of an Island in 2003. His poetry has appeared extensively in Irish literary journals, more recently in UK journals such as Black Box Manifold, Tears in the Fence, Long Poem Magazine, and the Fortnightly Review. Without further ado, we'll hear from Dara.
Thanks very much. Can you hear me okay?
You are coming through loud and clear. That's perfect.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so by way of explanation of the title of my book, Nostoc, and so that you don't get the impression that I'm some sort of religious zealot, I just like to point out that it doesn't refer to some Latinate pre-Vatican II doctrine, although I do like those connotations, but it actually refers to a mysterious fungus that comes to the surface after periods of rain, and it has various folk names such as star jelly and witch's butter. The late Victorian era was probably when man first began to attempt to restrain and tame nature. It also coincided with the Anglo-Irish ascendancy class's strange fascination with all things Celtic. At the same time that Maud Gonne was turning up at Irish literary revival events dressed in ancient Celtic costumes that she'd actually designed herself, a certain Captain Graham was obsessed with trying to resurrect the old Irish wolfhound, although it is now scientifically doubted that the breed ever actually existed. These first three pieces are from a short sequence dealing in part with man's meddling with nature's coding. Victorian. Out in his cobbled backyard, the Reverend Jack Russell watches a goldfinch prepare for its own funeral, muted by the stacks of ghost white dog hair that it snatches from the ground. He's been breeding for a few seasons now, miniaturizing at every step, unpacking the Russian doll of a fox-hunting dog from each of the discarded ghosts. Every dawn and dusk he's watched the local foxes steal their red cloven way across the fields, the tinderbox of their nerves scurrying for sanctuary, now that the covenant has been betrayed. A fox slid out of the ivy hedging up ahead and stalled to stare at our two dogs, their leads harnessing them to a different world, as a brief flame of sensation shimmered between all three, a flicker of startled memory. Napkins of cloud were dragged through the pewter ring of the moon, napkin tied to napkin of night being hurried through as a mutiny of crows harassed each other through a child's broken drum, and the cot lurched like a ship in the hardening ice. The nursery had been disturbed, and all three had fled their disrupted Eden. One of the dogs came back out of the ditch, head tilted upwards and proudly panting, his mouth stuffed with the ball of a staring rabbit's head, its ears smoothly stiff, a medieval shuttlecock perfectly and neatly severed, the veins neatly trimmed, as if the fox had just unscrewed and discarded it like a doll's head, of the kind that the same fox had dismantled the winter previous, stealing about the frozen fields in its clothes, the frilled hems being distracted and harassed by every torn hedgerow. Nostoc. The female dog has spent the early part of winter outdoors, licking and chewing witch's butter, the residue of nights of rain and misformed thoughts, a regurgitated language that she refuses to share, dressed as she is in an old gabardine school coat and hair that she will no longer address. Her womb must be squirming with a hatchery of mermaids' purses. It won't be long now before she begins to dribble miniature dogfish, skate, and sharks, all which will bask briefly in the cold light of day. Buckling about in a wind as muscular as a Clydesdale, she is wobbled away from countless strokes. Yet, no matter how we try to dress her up, she continues to spill a variety of life forms. Nostrum Nox. Where are you going with that blood on your shirt, boy? The fox asked me. I didn't recognize him at first, being out of the raggedy dress he normally wore. He said that he'd been out helping with the lambing, reddening the frost around the newborns. I told him that there was the womb of a horse lying in our driveway, the Trojan knight having abandoned it there so as to transfer something else. I asked him if he had anything to help with the loss of an old dog. Maybe the night will bring her back, boy, the fox said. I used to like to think that I occupied a similar mindscape to the Portuguese artist Paula Rego, some old musty cobwebbed Victorian attic with a big trunk of forgotten costumes and animal skins that we had fun mentally dressing up in. 8 hours before, I read an interview that she gave a couple of years back, and I realized that she'd been in the attic for completely different reasons to me. And I remember being bothered for a good few days afterwards for her, thinking about the demons that she'd been disguising herself in order to hide from. On reading that Paula Rego suffered horrifically from depression. I was surprised at how saddened I felt on reading that Paula Rego suffered horrifically from depression, literally crawling away from herself on that couch, and thought about how the mirror of her own hauntings had been hung with black Victorian fabric and the too loud fabric of her own winding sheet, so frightening, like the crinkling of night's dowager hump, its deformed egg of pre-light fabricated in the tin pot of a billy in the bowl, the same tin pot that so many of her women, condemned to bleed and endlessly breed, squatted over with their melon-swollen thighs, so many spilled rabbit parts slinking into the hickory-dickory dock as all the mice scurried up around her neck, which at the end of the interview she began to squeeze and squeak, her child's face suddenly revealed again above a necklace of mice that her granddaughter had made for her. The heron figure in this book is a death figure, its wings getting ever louder as the book progresses. The bird itself is probably the perfect embodiment of the phrase cloak and dagger, standing as it does on its solitary watches. And although I'm quite sure that the creature is far more benign in real life, I would still recommend that if a heron were ever to walk up to you and ask you to play a game of cards with it, then I would implore you to just walk away. A heron's possessions. From an old heron lullaby. The hooded winter lured the hooded boys into the hooded river. Crows, hangman, boatman. These are the shadows that had been affixed to their hooves while they still lay in their cradles. These are the shadows that trailed them on every one of their walks. Sighted in the light of fox equinox, an amber-stained post-storm dawn, with the appearance of wind-blown foam having attached itself to some random sticks, and the notion that there is something darker overcrowding itself within, pushing against a hunch of its back, presiding over an orphanage afloat with bloated, lifeless fish. It stands at the bend in the river where all the young boys slipped into the water to drown, the year all the otters began to die, their dried out pelts littering the corn-piled shore like old bits of bark, and unfolds the lengths of its wings, a pair of Turin shrouds in which the shadow of every swaddled child is still just about visible. Like most small cities, Cork had its well-known suicide spot during the 70s and 80s. It is an old disused railway viaduct that looms over the road to West Cork on the very edge of the city, standing like the ghost gates to the city in a previous century. I pass under that viaduct twice a day, going to and from work, and every so often the light in that dip can seem different from all else around it. Bird movement above the viaduct, N71. We usually come here once a week to clear up the wings and things of all those that failed to fly, their ill-conceived wings, their wing-conceived ills, their plastic bag and sellotape contraptions, their chicken wire and bedsheet fallacies, all those boys and young men that did not want to become those men who spend their Februaries tramping around the fields that surround us, hunting a fox in the sleet, their lives measured in the years of these dog days, their savage need for death on a Sunday afternoon. Sometimes on a cold winter morning, the light grows strange, and above the viaduct, a flurry of seagulls begins to snow upwards. Okay, with the English crown coveting his lands, the Irish chieftain O'Sullivan Bear was forced to flee his lands in the winter of 1601, and along with 1,000 of his people, he marched northwards in search of safety and support. The writing duo Edith Somerville and Violet Ross, now seen to be the last vestiges of the Anglo-Irish ascendancy class, lived on their estate close to the Beara Peninsula. Even after the death of Violet Ross, Edith Somerville continued to publish under their joint names, claiming that the two were still in contact. The bearing of the dead across on the Jersey Island cable car. O'Sullivan Bear, captain of his nation, chief Irish of Ireland, lord of Bear, of Horse Island, Hog Island, fort of the pigs, Pigmoor, of the herds of herring ploughing through those waters as the ocean's temperature rose, their tide dragging with them the spires of Spanish fishing fleets. A lordship defined by the ghost wards that the fish inhabited, bordering the rock that was frozen beneath the moss, beneath the peat, and the rivers that leaked silver and copper through his land. Ghost wards, dense with cod, haddock, salmon and mackerel all through summer, herring and pilchard in autumn, monkfish and plaice all year round, beds of oysters, nets spilling cacophonies of lobster, crabs, mussels and cockles. O'Sullivan, Sylvan in that remote and barbarous country that the Crown wanted for its coastal trade, burning the corn of Bantry and Beara, called to the Tower of London in 1589 and 1592, and again in 1593, to resolve dispute after dispute as they continued to survey the region for clearance. And in the mist-muttering distance, the incomprehensible dry hark of calling to hound the West Carbery foxhounds from across the snow-smothered estate of Somerville, where a congress of foxes hides beneath the pews of a church as the last shards of winter light that Harry Clarke has made literate spells out their mood across the stone-flagged floor. And Violet has taken to dressing like the gardener in an old trench coat, her hair wild and unkempt and frizzing in the constant drizzle. She dismantled the horse car horn from the Daimler. I found it secreted in her coat's bottomless pockets, those tattered pockets that leak constellations that give a midday sheen to the whole white bright pelt of the snow. January comes wearing wolf masks. The trees are garbed in armor and bleed fruits of crow. The shattered sleet breaks through the air and is trampled beneath into frost. The exhausting mush and slush of dragging wrapped ankles and shins that freeze in those rags of frost-flaked, shivering silver. They killed 12 of their own horses, making currigs from their hides, packing their prepared flesh for meat. North through O'Kelly country, sleet mapped the already dead all the way back to Glengarriff, the snow so deep, as heavy as dead horses, its weight everywhere, dragging on everything. Sleet so vivid and cold, like the exposed workings of night. The cold shoals of stars crowding the night, their fires shattering the blackness of the forests, the snow falling to the rhythm of slow bells, the moon's light echoing on its surface where it lies. Poor Violet has caught a severe chill. She just can't seem to warm up. I found her on the grounds, chasing shadows across the snow in her night things. She says that she saw a procession of about 1,000 bedraggled souls marching beneath the moon. She wanted to help them. She can only stomach porridge, and even that she has a problem trying to keep down. She just can't seem to keep warm, as the Daimler that Edith can no longer afford to pay petrol for sits delicate as a moth beneath frost on the snow outside Somerville House. Inside, the gramophone plays a sad, gin-soaked New Year's Eve song for poor Violet, and all the lights in the house have been switched off in a final bid to economize. With a Spanish bell ringing of white pointed hoods and meshed veils of black roses, his death echoed as he was stabbed, and the winter of 1601 once more flowed from his side, along with the trampled footprints of the 965 who carried his blood and the glass altar of his title through the Irish frost and snow and the medieval dying light. And poor Edith, out on the lawn, lost in the centuries-old fog, still looking for Violet, and Violet exiled on the moon, unloading the ships, their hulls full of snow and ice. Okay, there's a lot of ghosts in these last two pieces, and although they're not linked in the collection itself, I thought that they'd go well together in a reading. Growing up, I was so used to the words to Mary's that it was only after the book was printed that I realised that it seems to be only a cork word for those small travelling and seasonal fun fairs that were such a part of the holiday season in the second half of the last century, with their bright primary colours and innocent mechanics, and which now seem so drenched in the melancholy of nostalgia. One of these, Mary's Piper's Fun Fair, used to winter across the way from where my father worked in the 70s, all the rides covered in seasonal tarpaulin, waiting for the spring. A reading of Cy Twombly's Leaving Paphos, ringed with waves. Leaving Blasket and Arran, waves heaped on all sides, the dead stain the sea with their shoals, a wound of boats begins to bleed, our rage has been winged by grief, a blood of orange dripping through the sea, ringed with wings, we rage with grief. And then we went down to the Currachs and watched the hordes of ghosted women in black shawls follow the men off the train from Cork as they trampled through the all sunshine into Clancy's pub, and then peered through a window as homemade dresses twirled over the sliding water lilies of light on the almost empty dance floor of the Strand Palace next door, and then later onto the Moby Dick pub to chase the echo of gaudy swing boats of giddy orange raised against a darkening sky as a shoal of seagulls twisted and turned overhead, gilded silver in the sieved light, and then to be released into the damp July night as the music of the fun fairs bled orange in the blue rain, all the way from Perks and Youghal to Pipers and Crosshaven, the echo slowly blinking out from Dingle Pier to Lahinch, from Salt Hill to Westport, hives of light strung out all along the coast, with the only music now to be found along the empty shoreline being the low, sad sound of the merries, heard at a distance of ghost cheers. Piper's Fun Fair, Winter Grounds, Douglas and Echo. Something unseen sparks a slump of seagulls to spin up off the river with chaeroplane screams and rotate as if confined within a wall of death, as beyond the light a silt of stars gets pushed out just that little bit further, like a coin pusher machine in an arcade. And then, just as abruptly, like the jellyfish collapse of a big top tent, the seagulls flop and drop to echo out across the river's surface, and the stars remain silted at the edge of the universe as dark's tide is brought to a hushed silence, and it has grown so quiet that you could hear a planet drop. Thanks very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dara.
Thank you.
That was fantastic. Some beautiful stuff there, absolutely gorgeous. And next up we have Jonathan Davidson. Jonathan is joining us from England, from Birmingham, I believe.
Yes.
And Jonathan has spent a lifetime finding ways to release poetry into the wild. He's curated festivals, made poetry theatre performances for the stage and radio, and published books and pamphlets. His most recent books are Commonplace, Bricks, Apples and Other People's Poems, which is available for pre-order. One moment there, let me just get the details for that. That is available for pre-order on poetrybusiness.co.uk. So you can find it up there, Commonplace, Jonathan's newest collection. So what else we have? We have On Poetry, published in 2018, and Humphrey Coningsby, Poems, Complaints, Explanations and Demands for Satisfaction. It's published at Valley Press in 2015. He won a Gregory Award in the 90s and won the BBC Proms Poetry Competition in 2013 and the Cafe Writers Poetry Competition in 2015. So Jonathan is joining us from Coventry. I have a little artifact here, which is a CCFC scarf. I kind of support them. Long story, won't get into it. I just thought I'd show you that to welcome you to your reading.
Okay.
So if you take it away for us there, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much, Carol. You can hear me, I'm assuming. Yes, great. Okay, thank you. It was very nice to see the Coventry City Football Club scarf. I did spend 20 years in Coventry, I'm now in Birmingham, but if I looked to any football team, I looked to Coventry. And I saw hundreds of completely hopeless games. There you go. So I'm going to read 11 poems. I'll give a very short introduction to each one of them. Most of them are about my family, I'm afraid to say, who you'll get to know over the next 19 and a half minutes. So the first couple of poems are about my mum, who is very old and short of memory, I think it's fair to say. And this little poem is about her remembering things from her past, of course. She grew up near Liverpool during the Second World War, and she particularly remembers seeing the city in the distance burning during the Blitz. And I mentioned some waterfalls in a little North Welsh town called Llangollen, which was a place lots of Liverpudlians used to go and visit when they had some free time. So the poem is called Clouding Over. Clouding over, she forgets the face, then a date, then the day of the week. She calls her daughter the name of a cat she had as a girl. The lightning striking momentarily illuminates her life. The night she woke to see the city burn. That time they told her she was adopted. The thunder reminds her of the bakery she worked in. She remembers the falls at Llangollen, the river in full spate, the rowing boat capsized. We all got wet. The clouds are beautiful. It starts to rain. And my second poem my second poem about my mum is also about myself. When I was very young, she bought a book of poems by a writer called Walter de la Mare, Poems for Children. And I know this because many, many years later, I found the book, a very old book, and the page which I loved most had been sellotaped over. It was very worn and dirty. And it was a poem called Won't. And the poem was about a little boy who refused to do what his mother told him to do. And I read this poem to my mum 3 or 4 years ago. So she would have been 85, 86. And suddenly in the moment of me reading her the poem, she remembered that she'd read it to me when I was 2 or 3 years old and when she was a young woman. And she gave me the middle line, the last line of the first stanza of this poem. So you'll hear that line and I'll pause just after. And that was the line she gave to me. And having given me that line, I felt I had to write this poem. So it's a poem about me remembering having had her read this poem to me 50 odd years ago. And it's called Won't. Mum reads me Won't by Walter de la Mare, as she used to when we were first mother and son. It's the same house, the same air, the same words, but in her head another woman holds her little boy. She tells me, I read this to you when I was your mother. Her voice distorts. She doesn't cry. A bee taps at the window twice, then drifts away. But you're still reading it, I say, and we are still mother and son. Oh, will you stay for your tea? She asks, as she always does. I won't. No, sorry. I have to get away. And now I have two poems about my father, because I'm very democratic like that. So my dad was, like many working class men, a keen cyclist. He grew up in Liverpool, and when the war was over, he went cycling all over the country. But he was not a good map reader. I think that is fair to say. And as children, me and my sister would go on all sorts of walks and cycle rides with him and end up in places where we didn't want to be. So in this little poem, all the examples of very poor map reading are absolutely genuine, and I have been involved in them. But also this is about an experience where I found myself cycling in North Wales. I am my father's son, and navigated myself into a river. The poem is called The Back Roads. The back roads. And he would take the back roads that often led to ploughed fields, barbed wire, farmers with shotguns, and once to a wooden bridge over a river with a sign saying, condemned. We crossed, of course. That was my dad. Where is he now? I swore I wouldn't take the back roads, but here I am, lifting my bike over a stile, wading a ford, crossing a rifle range. Here I am on the back roads, and that figure ahead, vaulting a 5-bar gate, as one shouldn't. It is my father. And the second poem about my father, who died 3 years ago, is yes, a rather upsetting one in a way, because in his last few years he became tired and disorientated, even in his hometown where he'd lived for 50 years. And on one occasion, the police had to bring him back in a police car because he'd gone out for a walk and got completely lost. And that was really the last time he ever went out on his own. So this poem is not absolutely accurate to what really happened, but it's imagining how he gradually lost connection with his town and his people and his countryside, the place he'd adopted for much of his adult life. And it's called Father. Father. I walked with my invisible father out into the fields on the edge of town, but they are gone now. New roads, new names, new people. Dad, stay here for a while, I said, and I'll go and find out what has happened to our lives. He sat on the newly installed bench. And when I returned, furnished with stories of change, I found him utterly dead. His cold eyes on the cold world closed. So many years he had lived here, and then this. His roads renamed, his fields built over, his people now coming into view as strangers. So I'm going to go back a generation to my dad's father, my grandfather, who was called Frederick Arthur Davidson. He was Liverpudlian. He went away to sea when he was 14. He joined the Merchant Navy. I think he spent some of the First World War in the Merchant Navy. He was also a very traditional man in many respects. He was a traditional member of the Communist Party of Great Britain, which obviously many people in Liverpool were. And this poem is about his relationship with the Communist Party, and his relationship with being a sailor. And it's for my aunt, his daughter, my father's sister. Frederick Arthur Davidson, for Rita Walker. I think of my merchant navy grandfather boarding a vessel bound for the far north, even to the end, a neat and abstemious man, perfectly turned out, a dab hand at sewing. He served me baked beans with curry powder, like they did at sea. He wanted revolution. That he was, on balance, wrong about how the world would sail itself is, on balance, irrelevant. He stood still on one of the decks as the ship cut its way through a choppy swell, and he moved with the mass of steel and water, a man at ease with the mass of steel and water. He was a lovely man, certainly to me, but he was also a tough man. So the book that Cahill mentioned, which is published shortly, is called A Commonplace, and includes many of my poems, but also 12 poems by other poets. And it also includes a commentary running through the book, me talking about why I like these poems and why I've included them. And the bit I would have written about this poem had we been in lockdown is to say that this next poem is a bit like a lockdown poem in that it's about two people being physically distanced, but through the magic of the airwaves being brought together momentarily as they hear a piece of music. I'm told that Philip Larkin, the little-known English poet, wrote a poem on a similar subject, but I'm also told that his is not as good as mine. Anyway, we'll see. So this is called Live Broadcast. Too late to go out and nowhere to go anyway. I content myself with this celestial but disconcerting music, a Brandenburg by J.S. Bach, which they enjoy in London very much. Your message says you're sitting down to listen to it too, or busying yourself with things that must be done, or watching as the last high clouds grow dark. Although we are alone, the gods of digital transmission have ensured the sound they give to me, they give to you. Now all that is between us is the music. It breaks into the orbit of our hearts. No, honestly, that's what I think, and holds us each to two trajectories fixed by the pull of time and place until the final notes have died away and grand applause releases us back to ourselves. So I grew up in a small working class town in North Berkshire. Don't let the accent confuse you. In the south of England. There are working class towns in the south of England. And one of my first jobs when I left school with my solitary A-level was to be an apple picker and to work as an odd job boy in a garden in a village a few miles from my town. So this little poem is about the woman who owned the garden, who was 70 or 80 when I knew her. The poem's not entirely factually true, but it's true to the spirit of finding myself climbing trees and picking apples. It's called Miss Balcom's Orchard. I came from the shed where we sorted the apples, not splitting the day, but moving through it. And I carried a spade or a fork and a hoe. She was gone down to the top orchard, all her 70 years on the Diddy tractor with the dog snapping at grasses. A vapour of petrol settled on the morning. Slicing the friable soil, the spade made the sound of steel on flint, and the frozen loam fractured, sheared at my feet and at my weight, and I was delving as I had been instructed. Only I did not know she was dead then. Propped on the tractor, her leather gauntlets gripping the knurled steering wheel, the motor idling, and her mouth was open to release the ghost of the spark on steel, on flint, but had moved through her, and her unfashionable trees were a lost garden. I've just got a few more poems to go. I hope I'm not taking too much time. So this next one is also about apple picking, set at exactly the same time, more than 35 years ago. And and as I recollect, most of it is true. Apple picking. It's autumn, and I'm working at picking the last of the small apples. They've grown without check, they glitter in the slight breeze. It takes a young man and a tapered ladder and some nerve to reach them. In the big wooden shed, the women of the village and one old man are grading my catch. I'm the last picker, sent to finish off because I'm recently fallen in love and am incapable of doing much else other than swaying in treetops. So now I'm nudging the ladder into the branches and taking 2 rungs at a time, holding a basket. I lever, pivot, lean and stretch out to twist the apples from their sprues. I listen for the soft, sharp snap of stem parting company. What I pick, I set down as gently as I can. Apples bruise beneath the skin, unnoticed until days later they bloom into decay and damaged apples are discarded. The women of the village see to that. Working, I think of the young woman I've fallen in love with, how we found the pale scars on her body when we undressed each other. An accident as a child, scalding water, nothing more. I had put my face to her damaged skin and drawn in her rain-washed smell, not realizing how this must have hurt, or how much love it took to let me see her. And I did not wish that she was different. I wished that I was. And I think I have, just 2 more poems to go. So this is, needs no explanation really. It's a poem written about a small valley in North Wales. I like North Wales, as you will have gathered. It's called Just Off the A5, west of Llangollen. To swing the gate shut and latch it, and to begin to walk up the track along the coombe is almost like love. The stream tilts past you, clattering the silent air heavy with the crash and song of tumbling water. The mud gives way to bare rock, splintered by seismic pressure pushed from below. The life that you have lived, the lies told. The cottage stands ready. Slow, heavy slate takes your weight, a small desk, an old chair, outside, leaves and hills. And in the frail, unleavened moment, you are pulled back into yourself. Before the fall, the boy, lost, alone. And now my final poem. I have in the book some poems of politics and contemporary politics, but this is the only one I'm reading for you tonight. It's a rather dark poem. As you'll know, my little country has committed an act of self-harm, and plenty of us will suffer, and I'm afraid other countries will suffer too. This madness may last a generation, but we'll be back. Meanwhile, here's a poem about having your papers checked at the border, something I'm going to have to get used to. Borders. They are bringing back the borders. So a night train winds to a dead halt, and in the blazing darkness of suspicion, uniformed men just doing a job thump through doors and fill the corridors with orders and mistrust. They are looking for the others, not you. But still, your eyes look to your shoes in need of spit and polish. You hope they do not stop. They stop. You hear the hum of electricity. Voices demand papers. And it begins. Thank you very much.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much again, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
It's just a pity now that we're doing digital Ovale, because on normal Ovale night in Monday in the Long Valley, the reception is incredibly warm, and we'd have welcomed you yourself and Dara properly. But it's a delight to have both of you here and delight to have two strong, powerful readings like that. That was marvelous. So now we're going to move on to the open mic, and we're going to have another round of applause, the virtual round of applause there for Dara and for Jonathan.
Thank you.
So if we can start getting some names into the open mic, I already have one or two, but if you want to just hit your name into that chat box there, and we'll flake on into it. So first up, because I received a couple of private messages there while things were getting underway. I'm going to sort those out while we have Maura Stevens first up to the mic.
Oh, there we go. Hi. Okay, I thought I'd share a poem about Manx legend tonight. Last time I was here, I did one about a Manx disaster, which was historical, but I thought fitted the harbour.
Shut the fuck up.
Harbour theme. So tonight I'll do, this is the poem about the Motherdo, which is the black dog of Peel, a Manx legend.
Oh, Bill, you look like a cocksucker. Oh, Bill, do not fucking use me, nigger.
Apologies about that, guys. We seem to have a Zoom bomber, so we're just going to try and get rid of that.
Yeah.
One moment. This happens from time to time. Where we just
Okay, terribly sorry about that, but that's
comes
been
into the chat and just
I
it's a
know.
little bit of entertainment for someone far away.
He's been taken out
But
anyway.
just hop them off there. Wonderful. All right. Sorry about that, Maura. We'll take you from the top one more time.
All right, okay, so the poem I'm going to do is called On St. Patrick's Isle. It's retelling a Manx legend, the legend of the Motherdo, black dog of Peel. St. Patrick's Isle is a small little islet that the Peel Castle sits on. I think last time I was here I did one about the Manx herring fleet disaster because it was the Harbour Festival, wasn't it? So here we go. On St. Patrick's Isle, when the night winds blow, secure the gate, then go below. Through twisted tunnels, wreathed in gloom, deliver the keys to the captain's room. Returning then to fellow men who close beside the gate do wait, a cheering blaze to keep them warm, those who watch from dusk till dawn. Till on one night of shrieking storm, from darkened door on silent pour, a monstrous hound with midnight fur stalks forth to follow to guardsman's door. Voices falter, laughter dies, as to the fire the black dog strides. Then, like any common cur, it lies and stretches on the floor, but on its hide and in its eyes reflected light transforms and dies. Welcome hearth fires become instead fierce hell flames to burn the dead. Men draw back, companions seek, near that fell beast few dare to speak. But one callow youth, new to the fold, declares them cowards, men grown old. He alone won't fear to walk the empty halls neath castle walls, and so he snatches up a light and marches off into the night. The creature watches, silent, grim, then slowly pads out after him. Those within are silent now, cold sweat beads on soldier's brow. Then comes a sound no man should hear, an eldritch scream binds all in fear. They find the boy as morning breaks, and up above the castle wakes. Lay him gently on his bed, though it is clear his wits are fled. Stark horror etched upon his face, held fast in nightmare's cold embrace, until at last, at the third sunrise, he takes a final breath and dies. Now men won't venture underground, for fear they'll meet the devil's hound, the Motherdo black dog of Peel, and it should call their souls to heel. On St. Patrick's Isle, when the night winds blow, secure the gate, don't go below. Cross Castle Yard, neath frosted moon, deliver the keys to the captain's room.
Fabulous.
Okay.
I love that gothic style that it's transporting.
Thank you.
Next on the open mic we have Jim Crickard.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay? Okay, brilliant. So what I'm going to do isn't actually a poem. It's a little bit of a memoir, kind of just a little bit of a memoir I've written, and I'm going to set a little timer for maybe 3 minutes, and we'll just see how far I can get. It's called. Have you ever seen that film Inside Out, where you have all the emotions living in the head? Yeah. So I kind of wanted to write that from my own kind of experience. And it's just about being 12 and, you know, in the closet and stuff. It's called The Mechanics of the Closet. In secondary school, a team of image consultants worked inside my head. I hired them 3 months in advance of my first day. They got to work right away with great purpose and alacrity. A team of professionals wearing business suits, white shirts, pencil skirts, and black slacks. They scoured my brain and compiled observations into page after page of an enormous dossier entitled How to Act Straight. They drew diagrams from my posture and movement style, solid, intentional, restrained. Voice experts regulated my expressions and banned all upper octaves. Homo snags were fine-combed from points of discussion. Desperate Housewives, Ugly Betty, America's Next Top Model. They brought in a SWAT team to arrest all feminine words. The word fabulous was the most dangerous, most resistant criminal. It screamed from a cage supervised by armed guards. This team were serious about their work, meticulous. A think tank was organized to determine whether liking desserts was homosexual. A summit was held on whether it was too suggestive to call myself a cat person. In the end, both of these things were detained, pending release if other boys made such statements. A stylist was called in to help with my attire, a fashionista with an eye for assimilation. They presented a mood board of must-haves. Conformity is so hot right now, they raved, spreading corduroy pants and Tommy sport hoodies across my mind. The word fabulous was screaming in protest, but could not be heard on any conscious level. Although they had felt they had smoothly prepared for every eventuality, when we finally went live, the entire team was a nervous wreck. They worked right through the night before. I found it difficult to sleep with all of the last-minute planning going on between my ears. It went into the small hours and they ended up sleeping at their desks, still wearing business suits, waking up with ink all over their faces. I woke up late too. Okay, that's it. So that's 3 minutes. I'm gonna stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. That was fabulous.
Not the title.
Absolutely wonderful. So next up we have Pamela Campbell for the very first time coming to us from South Carolina.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're coming through loud and clear.
Great. Okay. This is a poem and it's in honor of my grandfather. A lopsided ear dog. He ain't for sale, he says. His watery blue eyes squint hard at me. I squat and trace lopsided ear dog's ear with a grass-stained finger. I ain't asking to buy, I say. He licks his lips and stabs snuff-stained fingers at me. You looking like you want to buy, he says. My pocket bulging with broad piggyback coins holds his truth, along with the smile that tugs at my mouth with each lick of lopsided ear dog's tongue. I ain't, I say, and pull all 4 feet of me into that space where negotiating lies, truly lies, and turn to walk away. For anything can be bought or sold, my daddy Paul says, if you ain't too eager. Hold on there, young'un, he says. What will you give for the pup? I turn slow like, the way I seen Daddy Paul do, and stub my toe, thoughtful like. How much will you take for him, I say. He spits, black mingles in the dry dirt just shy of my bare toes, and lays another pinch of snuff between cheek and teeth. You Austin's grand young'un for sure, he says. How about you give me that there in your pocket and we'll call it done. I am the grand young'un of Austin, mixer and painter of colors for homes and movie house murals, an undefeated town champion of checkers. Taught me to read, he did, books and dreams, and that I was no better nor worse than anyone, and to hold my ground with my boy cousins instead of crying. Half of what's in my pocket, I say, and stick my hand out. He spits, grins, and takes my hand. Done, he says. Yes, sir, I say, and dance all the way home with lopsided ear dog.
That was wonderful, Pamela. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure to hear that Appalachian accent as well. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
So next up we have Augustina. Augustina, if you could please take the mic.
Thank you. I've undressed you in my mind a couple of times in the last few months. Distance, isolation, and fear of a virus has got the better of us, or should I say me. I don't think my mind was this sexually active in a long while. I imagined that along with my common sense, deep and intense, complex emotions, I wouldn't need to remember your name. Tame me. We'd sink down, drowning in pits of pleasure, clinging the sheet, wriggling our feet, climaxing euphorically, again and again, simultaneously. Our souls would dance and whine and play, ping-pong through our genitalia. We would dance until exhaustion took place, and our once active but not so active anymore limbs would ache. Lockdown lifted, panties shifted, walls gifted, and whatever song was playing would get louder and louder until it stopped, and silence would seep inside us. Our eyes would lock where we lay, but you're so far away, and emotionally we've drifted further than I ever imagined. And it's funny because I thought we were making progress.
Fantastic, Augustina. I love to hear you read. I love the way you read. It's very measured. It's beautiful. Next up, we have Owen Hurley.
Hello again. Yeah, can you hear me all right? After treks through valleys deep and dark, along rocks that left my feet with scars, I rise upon a hilltop. I trace my eyes along the high ground, jumping contour to contour until I've found in the thick wet mist a nearby mound. I could be on that hilltop. There are clearer and kinder paths leading to her, less trips, tricks, and falls all alone for sure, but her views and perspectives are narrow and fewer. I'm glad not to be on that hilltop. Now with some smug, vindicated sense of prize, my gaze returns to my hard-earned prize, but my stomach falls and churns as with dread I spy a well-trodden path up my hillside. So these scars and these bruises and these spikes in my mind were not needed to be on this hilltop. Then why? Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Owen. Next up, we have Emily Davis Fletcher on the open mic.
Hi. It's so great to be here, and I absolutely loved Jonathan Davidson's reading. That was so beautiful. thank you so much. All of it was very touching, especially the poems about your mom and father, and then the apple picking poem. So I'll probably private message you later to find out what book those are in, or what books those poems are in. And Dara, I'm sorry I missed yours, but I've heard you reading Cork and at the Cork Festival, and I'm sure it was brilliant. Sorry for missing that. So I'm gonna read one new poem. All right. The clown awaits your cue to enter the tent. To see him, you must see out of the corners of your eyes, open to possibilities, write love letters and poems, often starting with, where are you? Under your pillow, keep a list of the qualities you want. The river of your dreams carries each inky word off the page. Ask insects to broadcast your signals, especially ants. The world is stitched by ants. Console tree stumps. Reassure the limb of a marsh oak that its egret will return. Remind an egret that her branch squints beyond the horizon for her. Solicit the moon to hold your vision. Fold matching socks and leave at the foot of your bed in the morning like eggs. Balance a fist-sized cliff of obsidian on your pubic bone. Focus on your own circus. Sweep out all the monkeys in their cherry red vests. The one who flicked ash into cans round his bed. The one who only apologized for his harsh laundry detergent. The one whose idea of foreplay was to place your hand on prehistoric shark teeth. Let go of the acrobats who swung out with open arms and dropped you. With deep belly breaths, clear the elephants of fear wearing scarlet brocade dresses. They trumpet from the shadows that you are not good enough, not worthy, not lovable. Grab fear of being hurt by its scraggly tail and yank hard until you feel the root pop loose. Give the dancing bear of abandonment new music, the Garrow's horse stomp, and watch her hips turn a figure 8. Cut the polyester kitten ears from tigers you have caged in your throat and called swollen lymph nodes. Free them to climb the king pole, burst into the sky, and hit the ground running like lava. Sit your inner child in the front row with plenty of popcorn and watch her face brighten as your tent is cleared the way an egg sac erupts with the stars of tiny silver spiders. Hold her hand tightly when she jerks to run toward a clown you have started to call John the Baptist. He showed up first with qualities from your list, as if he'd waited in your dreams. He plays in bed like an otter on a riverbank, rips through the plastic armor on your heart with tenderness, offers you the first sip of water in the morning. Still, he is not committed to your circus and cuts your heart nearly as often as its plastic armor. Remind your inner child as she salts her popcorn with tears, the best clown is coming, like the clown from her favorite book, who when he juggled, a rainbow swirling between his hands, tossed the golden ball into the air, last and at the right moment. Thank you.
Amazing as ever, Emily. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely marvelous, Emily. Wonderful.
Riot, have you much to say, Riot?
So next on the open mic we have Doc Yanning.
It's Janning.
Janning. I have a German friend who's Yanning, so I thought it might be the same, but Janning. Wonderful.
Right.
Take it away, Doc.
Earth Song, Summerlude. Rushing waters, cool sparkle of air, soft rustle of leaves on silken hillsides of green, and light dappled wind shadow neath slow dance of cloud striated sky. Cantabile susurration of slow golden breeze and ancient ageless arc of sun. Immeasurable dimensions of time, each day scented with unique essence. Blue-gray stone speaks in numinous silent whisper and articulate sacred tone of earth and nature, of ancient born, of eldritch magic and birth among the stars. hint of distant music, sirens, summons of seas, and age-old calls of birds, echo in plangent call of a jay, elegance arriving on wings of blue. All breathe from Gaia's heart, midst sacred memories of hoar-rhymed past and unknown future. Within translated feelings and moments, thoughts well of the impossible becoming half-conscious dulcet dreams of the possible, coalescing into phantasms. Memories of memories cross pathways of longing, woven of sensuous sunlight and velvet shadow. Ethereal looms of time stretching, uncharted, to the other side of the stars, to vanish into the immense silence of infinity. I travel through myself to find me, and words become worlds of light as I become who this place, this moment says I am. Thank you.
Magical, wonderful, Doc. Thank you so much. And now we have Sue Blue once more, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I thought I'd do a piece in German that I wrote last summer and translated during the lockdown. So I'm going to start with the German version now. Just to give you a tiny moment of background, I had a brain injury 7 years ago and went into a coma. And in that coma, there was a bit of a bigger experience. And since I'm back from that, I keep on seeking reminders of that experience because it was so beautiful and full of light. So that's the background, and I'm going to start in German and then read the English version. I can actually read that off the screen. Boote des Lichts. Wenn die Sonne auf den Wogen gleist, sich im Lichtspiel dieses Tages spiegelt, wenn die große Wellenfläche schillert und hell den Spiegel der Liebe verheißt, strahlend weiß wie wildeste Gischt, die silbrig im Abendleuchten schimmert, dann springt mein Herz voller Freude, in Erinnerung leuchtend berührt, vom unendlichen Ozean des Lichts. Und die Seele singt glücklich ein Lied vom jubelnden Ursprung des Lebens, funkelndes Urmeer ewiger Liebe. Ein Strahlen im Herzen voll Leichtigkeit, mit klarem Geist, der fragt und weiß. Kein schweres Gefühl, das dunkel wiegt, der Körper schwebt in Schwerelosigkeit. Die Seele ist Wonne, das Wesen eins, all dies zu erleben, durchdringt mein Sein. Und im Wissen dieser Seligkeit gesegnet, schwingt meine Stimme leise und trägt das Licht in den Tag und das Glück. Ups, I lost it. Bringt beseelt die Essenz dieser Liebe mit, singt seine Weise klar und hell, wie hier die Sonne auf den Wellen wallt. Und ich atme in tiefen Zügen erquickt das glitzernde Echo der Liebe ein, wo das Abendlicht auf den Wellen tanzt, im Spiegel des Glanzes Erinnerung weckt und die Wogen des Ozeans gleißen im Schein wie ein Bote des Lichts. Messenger of light. When the sun glistens on the waves, reflecting in the light show of the day, when the ocean's undulation dazzles vast, foretelling the glowing mirror of love, wild as the sea spray beaming white, shimmering as silver in the evening light. Then my heart somersaults in elation, with a glorious memory moved of the light of the infinite ocean, and my soul sings a blissful tune of the jubilant wellspring of life, a sparkling sea of eternal love. The heart is agleam with a lightness, a lucid mind that inquires and knows. No heavy feelings weighing with woe, the body poised in weightlessness, the spirit at one, the soul is in bliss. It fills my being to have witnessed this. And blessed with knowing this ecstasy, my humming voice brings quietly the light to the day and felicity. Soulfully carries the essence of love, singing its air so vibrant and clear as the sun undulates on the water here. And revitalized I deeply breathe, inhaling its glistening echo of love, where the twilight is dancing on the waves, and the play of splendor wakes memories, as the billowing swell of the ocean gleams in the glow like a messenger of light. Thank you very much.
That was wonderful, Sue.
Thanks.
That is just something about that particular kind of poetry, that like describing the peak experience, the sublime, the revelation. I just absolutely love it.
Thanks.
I just love
Thank
that
you
stuff.
very much. Thanks.
Marvelous. Thank you. So next up we have Jerry Murphy, please. Or we can, oh, Jerry, there you are.
Yeah. This is based on an essay by Leszek Kołakowski. He's a Polish philosopher, and I've shortened it somewhat. It's called A Question for the Mystics. Is God happy?
That is classic Jerry. Cheers, Jerry. Next up, we have Matt Mooney, please.
Okay. Wait till I get my mute. Yeah, okay. You can hear me? Right. Yeah, right. Do a poem that I did some years ago during a bad winter in Cork, and it's called Homeless Love. I also had the idea of calling it, it's a new poem, unpublished as yet. I had an idea of calling it I Found Love, because I did, strangely. A strange kind of love. Homeless love, off the Western Road, chilled by Siberia. They were settled down in a deep doorway, himself further in, sitting back in the inside, with a bit of a tash and an air of authority. Herself more to the fore to do any talking, and to show they were looking for charity. At the door of a store long since shut shop, after the burst, when business had finished. Now some pockets and hearts of bypassers outpoured for their poor perished, cast aside on this fierce February morning, heavily wrapped in the fight to keep warm. Hot on the phone to stop them from dying, to beg a place for the hungry and homeless from the top floor of the Lancaster Lodge. With snowstorms forecast, shelter was vital. Then, with news of my findings, I descended to see my new friends again in the doorway. Just after soup from some kind benefactors. On considering places of shelter I mentioned, it was their first priority to stay put as a pair. Spoke of their love that bound them together, of books being carried home from school. I stood by the fire of their undying devotion. Thank you.
Marvelous. Thank you so much, Matt. We're going to go to Anne Mcdonald next. Is Anne Mcdonald there?
Yep.
Wonderful.
How are you? Well, I hadn't actually expected to read tonight, so I'm really delighted to get the chance, but you're not going to believe this. I just picked down the last edition of the Blue Nib, and here is Anne Mcdonald, and here is Matt Mooney, who has literally been published on the opposite page to me. So there you go, Matt. Your poem Word and Stone.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Published in the same edition of the last one.
Yeah.
So there's a coincidence.
That's a beautiful coincidence, because that order was, I just picked you out of a message. Totally randomly. That's lovely. That's really nice.
That's great. Wonderful.
Well, there you go. Well, thanks so much. I'm just going to read the two poems that were published in the Blue Nib, if that's okay. And the first one is about my mother lost a baby, as many people would have similar experience when we were small. And this poem was about us when she came home, and we were wondering, what was going on. And it's really about the innocence and what we accepted as her reason why there was no baby. It was a quite sad time for her, but in the innocence of children, we just accepted what we were told. So it's called Stillbirth. Steps of stairs from 7 to 5, we stood in line on the garden wall, dressed in gingham, handmade, handed down, waiting now for hours, 5 dark heads burnished in the winter sun. It seemed like years since she had gone, and we almost thought we'd never get her back, but here she was, home. How are you, ma'am? What you get us? Where you been? Her questions clamoured. In the hospital, she replied, her face turned towards the harsh-lit kitchen window, and we all chorused, why? The cardboard suitcase opened on the table, and I saw her finger a pale blue piece of ribbon and cotton soft, a pale blue baby's bonnet. Softly, I could hear her whisper, I went to get a baby. She must have been 1,000 pieces, racked with pain and sore and sad, and patched together, dispatched out to carry on and not look back. So where's the baby, ma'am? We all asked. Quietly she fingered softness, and broken-hearted spared our pain, but increased hers when she answered, I'm sure there was only red-haired ones in the hospital shop. Thank you. And the second poem is another poem, ironically, with my mother. My mother's dead 5 years. She thought poetry was a load of nonsense. So it's really, I suppose it makes me smile that a lot of my poems feature her. This poem is called Crow's Books, and it's the title poem to my collection, which was to be coming out in April. But there you go. COVID notwithstanding, we're hoping for September. And ironically, my mother is buried in a graveyard in a place called Piltown near Meath, in Meath, which was the woods where we used to play as children. And she used to bring us with the pram, pretending we were going for a picnic, and then she'd take the smallest child out of the pram and fill it full of sticks. Well, we had a great time. So ironically, that's where she's buried now, and it's not a sad place for us at all. And there was always crows in it. So this was a memory of, I never realized my mother had a great imagination, or maybe it's just how gullible we were. I don't know. Very short poem called Crow's Books, Piltown Woods with my mother. We watched the flight of 100 crows squawk their way to the sky-high trees, and my mother said that they were birds coming home from school. We rambled on in the dusk-damp woods, and a pine cone lay under rusty leaves, and my mother laughed and said, Jesus, sure, one of the crows has dropped his books. And a pine cone sits on a rough-hewn desk, and when I hold it now, I am again 4 years old, and I hear again my mother's voice. Sure, there's always Crow's Books in Piltown. Thank you.
Wonderful. Next, we're going to hear from another Ovale regular and a favourite of mine. This is Mary O'Connell. Mary, are you there?
She's
1 second. We seem to be having a slight audio problem with Mary O'Connell. Mary, we can't hear you at the moment. I don't think the audio is coming through on your.
Can you hear me now?
No,
Yes,
she's up.
there you go.
She's up.
Perfect.
Hey.
Okay. This is called Me and My Shadow. By the way, before I start, I don't know how I have no idea how to get on for an open mic. So I don't know how I actually did get on in the. But anyway, that's for another day.
Good
This
for
is
us.
Me and My Shadow. I get a sharp comeuppance when life grabs me by the throat, shows me another side of me I'd rather push away. The Jekyll and Hyde syndrome, a disorder that disturbs, fires a shot of recognition that echoes in my soul. This devilish division fractures my shining being, a stone splitting a mirror in two opposing halves. Was Stevenson aware when the unlucky vision broke out from his unconscious that it would haunt the world? Strange that the divided self, a work by R.D. Laing, takes up in an uncanny way his fellow Scots' conceit. The protagonists have names at odds with their behavior. Jekyll's crooked consonants belying his upright stance, while the lingering vowels in Hyde roll smoothly off the tongue, suggesting he's the good guy, but the reader is proved wrong. Far from a guiding searchlight, Hyde chose a brooding cloud, let himself be blown off course, beyond all compass range. In this, it seems, I'm like him, allowing my dark destroyers erupt at certain moments to pull me down from what I've gone, for what has gone before. It wasn't read very well because I got the, anyway, that's it.
It's marvelous, Mary. Wonderful as usual. Next up we have, and also it was finely read as it always is. Next we have Margaret O'Regan. Margaret, we're just having a slight problem with your audio.
You need to unmute Margaret. Margaret.
Yeah.
Got to mute, sorry.
There we
I hope
go.
my connection is okay for this. It's very short anyway. It's called Passion. Stirrings begin in my mind. Is it okay now, do you think?
Start again.
Okay. It's called Passion. Stirrings begin in my mind. Passionate thoughts run wild. Sensual sensations of you. The feel of you, the scent of you, the taste of you, the heat of you. Feelings flood my senses. Every muscle tenses. Blushes bring hot-blooded flushes. Through every pore it rushes. Red-hot desire quickens, exciting turn-on visions. Pleasure zones exude erotically charged fluids. And all this before you walk in the door. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Margaret. So next up on the open mic, we have Colin Scotty, please.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, this is called Ciutadella. Ciutadella is the capital of Menorca,
next to Mallorca. So it's a nice little city. I was there a couple of years ago. It's an old city. So this is a poem called Ciutadella. I like small cities the size of Cork. We can walk around and meet yourself again coming out of the Bishop's Garden in Ciutadella, under the Berber arches by the ice cream stand, down slopes to the river, both sails quivering in the heat. Towns not quite famous, where the fish market is a fish market, not just the tour guide's coffee stop. Those bigger towns and tidy capitals, like Edinburgh and Ljubljana. A tiny Paris, its river spanned by smart bridges, museum, parliament and high court, all in one square. Cork size comforts me. I feel the sun's strangeness, but know around the bend, the Colquay, the Opera House and St. Mary's, or their exotic proxies wait. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sir Colm. That was wonderful. Next up, we have Philip Spillane.
Hello, everyone.
Philip,
Thanks
how are
very
you?
much. Not doing too bad. It's great seeing everyone. Great being in the Ovale vibes, and thanks so much for the two guest poets tonight. Brilliant. It's nice hearing words within my head again, and they're not my own. This is a very, very short piece. Apart, a million miles apart, both our lamps went out, and around the same time, we both said goodnight. A storm chars outside the window, a power outage, a million miles away, somewhere thunder claps. Thanks for listening. Take care, everyone. Hope I see you all soon.
Wonderful. So next up in the open mic, we have, one second, there's a few messages here. I have to sort through them. Mags Creedon, please.
Okay,
You're currently muted there, Mags, so we can't hear you. I'm just going to unmute you again. It's not letting me unmute you. So you're going to have to do it yourself on your side. If you can unmute your audio.
no bother. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Yeah, there you are.
Okay, I went into the book, the little coyote, this little eccentric guy that I found in an improv up in Sheha, heading off at his Honda 50 to tilt at the windmills and start them all out, you know. Started off with his galoshes squelched in a gloopy cadence. Look, I was talking to my sister Nora, Toronto, and I have 3 sisters, and we had 5 brothers, and they're passed. They used to go up Sheha every summer. We used to have a fierce day out. So she was saying, I don't know when I'm going to see Sheha again, Mags, you know, I won't be able to get in the plane. So I said, we'll try to send you a little song postcard of what it was like going up Sheha last Sunday without her. So if you'll pardon my sentimentality, I will try to catch it for her. She talked to me what she remembered, so she did the last verse. Can you hear that? On Sheha Mountain, the Balcom fills the air. Okay, I'm going to give it up here a bit. On Sheha Mountain, the Balcom fills the air. Lake waters lapping to the small birds chirping all the day. Through the heather and wild weather we must climb to where we salute from the summit great Bantry Bay as we ascend, my thoughts ascending through the years. Rolling back to our 5 brothers for their laughter, not for tears. Oscar Braga, Tina Logue, instant blood from Sheha Mountain and her sisters, thousand lucas. They'd say, don't mind the fog and watch out for the bog holes. We jump over the wet rushes, the furrows and the burrows, and we gaze out over Mal and Pipe Hill and Gartnahochty with the hazel trees and blooms of the Scacal and the collies rounding sheep for evening call. The valleys are a patchwork quilt laid out for us all. We'd look over the hills out towards Blugon, Carrig and Afrin and the Bailick to the north. And in the summer they'd swim out on Shell Lake and watch out for speckled trout, the Daragh Brack, and head home in the evening to Shachtrefta, cause son of Sosta Dunlawn and skylarks soaring high out from the gorse. The bees buzzing on the yellow bittern, sipping golden coins of furs, and a carpet of soft colour run the hares to chase the stream of silver over to Turin. They'd say, don't mind the fog and watch out for the bog holes. Jump over the wet rushes, the furrows and the burrows, and we gaze out over Mal and Pipe Hill, Gartnahochty and the hazel trees and blooms of the Scacal. As we ascend, my thoughts ascending through the years, rolling back to 5 brothers for their laughter, not their tears. Oscar Brock Tierna Nog in some bloss from Shem Mountain and her sisters, thousand lucas from Shem Mountain and her sisters, thousand lucas. I hope that wasn't too sentimental for you. Just for Nora Mary.
Mags, that was lovely. That was not sentimental at all. It was touching. It was wonderful.
It's what we did, but it was made up this evening, so of course, as usual, very raw.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, it's marvelous. So guys, we're coming to the end. We've got a couple of people left on the open mic. First up, we have Cedric. If we could get Cedric.
Can you all hear me properly? Cool. So this one's called A Cask of Truth. It's a 5-word challenge from the 12th of December 2016. They told me not to drink when I have things on my mind. Not a pint, not a bit, not a spit of combustible bad habit. Because the fear that the barrel of corrosive gray matter will crack. Its contents spill, light and powerful, to the surface of my tongue. Only sober am I allowed to pester on to dismissal. Little do they know, today the cask is explosive, and this wedding is the spark.
Lovely, Cedric.
Marvelous. And now we're on to the final poet of the open mic. Now, if I missed anyone, please just shoot me a message in the chat and I'll come straight around to you. But our final poet, as it looks now, is Catherine Ronan. If you please take the mic, Catherine. And then we'll go to
Hi, everyone.
virtual Arthur Mains.
Go on, Catherine.
Thanks for a fabulous evening, lads.
Lovely to see you, Catherine.
Guest poets were amazing. Very, very good. Really enjoyed them. My poem is called Invisible. Fingered, beaten, feral. Wedding day arrived. Too late at 25. Black-eyed isle, invisible. Shivering kittens ran for the spittle grizzle of settled fact before the dogs, invisible. Double blindfold, taken by the scruff to disbelief, there are no doors, invisible. Tongue swollen song, blue ankles blazing red. Speak in cant, invisible. Thank you.
Wonderful, guys. So that was 647th Ovale. So thank you very much to everybody who came along, to everybody who took part, to everybody who took part in the 5-word challenge, to everyone who took part in the open mic, and our wonderful guest performers as well. What we're going to do now is we're going to unmute everybody so we can just hang out in the virtual art domains, and we'll get a round of applause as well across the board for our performers tonight.
Yay!
Thanks for the great MC as well, Cahill. Well done.
Cheers, Philip.
A brilliant night.